Hamas didn't make the Gaza ceasefire fall apart. Israel did. Israel started bombing the entire Gaza Strip last night, killing 400 people after they claimed that Hamas was refusing to release all the Israeli captives. This is a total distortion. The original ceasefire agreement signed between Hamas and Israel on January 15th had 3 phases. In the first phase of the deal, the two sides exchanged prisoners in batches, and the Israelis withdrew their troops from the Gaza Strip and let humanitarian aid back in. This phase went through, which was supposed to trigger negotiations for phase 2, during which there would be more prisoner exchanges as they worked out a permanent end to the war. But what happened instead? Israel imposed a total blockade of Gaza, cutting off all aid from getting in, and refused to begin phase 2 negotiations for the permanent end to the war. That's why Hamas said it wouldn't release more hostages, not because they didn't want to negotiate, and it was actually Israel that effectively ended the negotiations by bombing the Gaza Strip last night. This shouldn't come as any kind of surprise, because Israel has resisted a permanent ceasefire since the start of the genocide, and the reasons are largely political. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formed a coalition with Israel's extreme right parties, who consider any kind of end of the killing a capitulation on Israel's part. They've repeatedly threatened to leave Netanyahu's coalition if he agrees to a permanent end to the war, which would cause Netanyahu's coalition to fall apart and him likely losing the prime ministership. So Netanyahu is very likely sabotaging the ceasefire to protect himself. This is confirmed by the numerous reports from people involved in the negotiations that have said that Netanyahu is intentionally sabotaging the ceasefire talks. In doing so, he's also defying the vast majority of Israeli society, which overwhelmingly supports continued engagement in phase 2 of the ceasefire deal. This isn't because they sympathize with Palestinians. A nearly identical number of Israelis said they support Donald Trump's plan to relocate Gazans to other countries, but the point is that most Israelis want the war to end so they can get their hostages back. Netanyahu doesn't care about this. The other reason Netanyahu doesn't want to end the war is that the Israeli right wing legitimately wants to ethnically cleanse Gaza to build Israeli settlements there. And now with Donald Trump's recent statements, they think they have their opportunity. For the past year or more, dozens of politicians in Israel, including many from Netanyahu's own party, have been openly declaring that Israel can only declare victory in Gaza if Israel builds settlements there for Israelis to live in. There have been multiple conferences preparing Israel for settlement in Gaza, and it's something that's openly talked about in Israeli parliament and Israeli TV.
לעשות את הכל אבק, צה"ל יפרז את השטח ונתחיל לבנות שם אזורים חדשים, קודם כל.
קודם צביקה, שבשנים האחרונות 500,000 צעירים היגרו, צריך ש2 מיליון יעברו. באמת זה הפתרון לרצועת עזה.
לקחת להם את השטח ולהתיישב, כי רק ככה הם יבינו שניצחנו אותם.
The purpose is to settle the entire Gaza Strip, not just part of it, not just a few settlements, the entire Gaza Strip from north to south.
This is part of a larger pursuit to build a greater Israel, an extreme messianic interpretation of Jewish scripture that says that all of the land from Egypt to modern-day Iraq belongs exclusively to Jews. We made a video about the Greater Israel plan called Greater Israel Explained, the Israeli Plan to Conquer the Arab World. With Donald Trump promising to give Israel everything it needs to finish the job in Gaza, as well as proposing plans to relocate Gaza's Palestinian population to other countries, he's essentially giving Netanyahu the blessing to do whatever he wants. But they can't do it if there's a permanent ceasefire. To go for Greater Israel, they need the war to keep going. At the end of the day, Israel's strategy hinges on a constant stream of US financial, military, and diplomatic support, which is why one of their greatest vulnerabilities is a massive shift in US public opinion. In a recent poll, sympathy for Israel hit the lowest level in 24 years. That's why Trump and the Israel lobby are trying so hard to crush and intimidate the movement for Palestine, because without US backing, Israel's genocidal machine would come to a screeching halt.